The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of the Galactic Council building for the third time in 500 years. Council members from 12 different worlds rushed to their seats as the massive viewing screen displayed images that made even hardened politicians gasp in horror. 3 mining colonies had vanished overnight. Where busy settlements once stood, only strange crystal formations remained. The crystals glowed with an eerie blue light that hurt to look at directly. Worse still, deep scanner readings showed that organic matter was trapped inside the crystal structures. People, buildings, vehicles, even the local wildlife had been frozen in time within the translucent prisons. Commander Hyun-woo stood at attention before the council. His dark uniform bore the marks of countless battles across the galaxy. Scars crossed his weathered face, each one a story of survival against impossible odds. Behind him stood his team, the finest warriors the galaxy had ever assembled. "The creature has awakened," announced Elder Voss, his ancient voice trembling with fear. "After 1,000 years of sleep, the Devourer walks again. 3 colonies in the Velthara system have fallen to its hunger." Murmurs of panic spread through the chamber. The Devourer was legend, a monster from the darkest myths of a dozen worlds. Stories said it consumed entire civilizations, leaving only crystal tombs behind. Most believed it was just a tale to frighten children. Now they faced the terrible truth. "We have assembled the greatest hunting party in galactic history," Hyun-woo said, his voice steady and confident. "Taemin of Nexus Prime, master of the Quantum Blade." He gestured to a tall man with silver hair pulled back in a warrior's knot. Taemin carried 2 curved swords on his back that seemed to bend light around their edges. "Yoonji, psychic warrior of the Mindforge Academy." A small woman with pale skin and dark eyes nodded slightly. Her mental powers could crush minds from a distance or read thoughts like an open book. Woo Jin, demolitions expert from the Mining Guild worlds. A stocky man with calloused hands smiled grimly. He had brought enough explosives to level a small mountain. And Dr. Jinnah Park of Earth, specialist in alien biology and quantum physics. The human woman stepped forward. She looked small next to the other warriors, wearing a simple blue jumpsuit instead of armor. Her equipment belt held scanners and data tablets rather than weapons. Several council members frowned at her inclusion. "A human?" Elder Voss asked. "What possible use could she serve in hunting the greatest predator known to exist?" Jinnah kept her expression calm, though she felt the weight of their doubt. "I've studied the energy readings from the attack sites. There are patterns in the crystal formation that suggest intelligence behind the process. This might not be simple predation." Taemin snorted softly. "Intelligence makes prey more dangerous, not less. A thinking enemy plans and adapts. We should hit it hard and fast before it can prepare defenses." "Agreed," Woo Jin said, patting a case of thermal charges. "I brought enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Whatever this thing is, it bleeds like everything else." Yoonji remained silent, but her eyes were troubled. She had tried to scan the crystal formations remotely using her psychic abilities. Something in those structures had pushed back against her mental probe with frightening strength. Commander Hyun-woo reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The creature appears to be mobile, traveling between star systems through unknown means. Orbital scans suggest it has made its current nest in the caves beneath Mount Koros on Velthara Prime. We will establish a base camp at the abandoned mining station, survey the target area, and deploy orbital bombardment to weaken it. Once the creature is forced to the surface, we move in for the kill. The plan was simple and direct. Overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower, then finish it at close range. It had worked against pirates, rebel fleets, and rogue artificial intelligences. There was no reason it would fail against one creature, however large. Jinnah raised her hand hesitantly. "Commander, the energy signatures from the crystal sites are unlike anything I've seen before. The power levels required to transform matter at that scale would be enormous. Perhaps we should attempt communication before— Communication? Taemin interrupted. You want to chat with something that murdered 3,000 colonists? I want to understand what we're facing, Jinnah replied firmly. The transformation process preserved the organic matter perfectly. That requires incredible precision and control. A mindless beast couldn't manage such complex energy manipulation. Wu Jin laughed harshly. Plenty of animals are precise hunters. A spider weaves a perfect web to catch flies. Doesn't mean we should invite it to dinner. The council members nodded in agreement. They had called for the galaxy's greatest warriors. Not a diplomatic mission. The creature had proven its hostile intentions by its actions. There was nothing left to discuss. Elder Voss stood and activated the chamber's ceremonial war brazier. Blue flames danced within the ancient metal bowl as he spoke the ritual words. By fire and void, by star and stone, we charge you with the death of this abomination. Hunt well, warriors. The hopes of countless worlds rest upon your success. The team boarded their ship, the Stellar Fang, within the hour. The vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering, equipped with enough weapons to level a city and shields strong enough to ram through an asteroid field. As they prepared for the journey to Velthara, each member checked their equipment one final time. Taemin meditated with his quantum blades, feeling the harmonic resonance between the weapons and his own life force. The swords could cut through any known material, slicing between atoms themselves. Yunji practiced her mental exercises, building psychic barriers to protect her mind from whatever alien influence might emanate from their target. Her abilities had never failed her before, but she sensed this mission would test her limits. Wu Jin reviewed the schematics of his explosive devices. He had brought everything from microscopic neural disruptors to city-killing fusion charges. Whatever they faced, he could blow it apart. Jinnah studied the scanner readings from the destroyed colonies, searching for clues the others had missed. The more she examined the data, the more convinced she became that they were making a terrible mistake. But her warnings had been dismissed, and now they were committed to their course of action. As the Stellar Fang entered hyperspace, racing toward the Velthara system, none of them could imagine how completely their understanding of the situation was about to change. They were hunters seeking prey, warriors ready for battle. What they would find instead was something far more complex, ancient, and ultimately heartbreaking than any of them had prepared for. The greatest hunt in galactic. History was about to begin, but it would not end as anyone expected. The Stellar Fang dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velthara system. Through the main viewing screen, the red planet hung like a bloody jewel against the star field. Commander Hyunwoo studied the tactical display while his team prepared. Their equipment. Orbital scans confirm the creature is still planet-side, he announced. Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this thing is, it's powerful enough to reshape matter at the atomic level. Jinnah looked up from her scanner readings. Commander, I'm detecting some unusual patterns in the energy signatures. They appear to be rhythmic, almost like breathing. Yunji finished quietly. The psychic warrior stood at the observation. Port, her face pale. I can feel it from here. It's aware of us. Taemin checked the edge on his quantum blades. Good. Let it know we're coming. Fear makes every enemy weaker. The ship descended through Velthara's atmosphere toward mining station, Theta. What had once been a thriving colony now lay in ruins, but not the kind of destruction they had expected. Buildings stood intact but transformed. Their metal and concrete walls turned to the same blue crystal they had seen in the reports. Wu Jin whistled low as they flew over the crystallized settlement. Look at that precision. Every structure perfectly preserved. This wasn't an attack. It was art. Art that killed 3,000 people, Hyunwoo said grimly. Set us down at the landing pad. We establish base camp in the admin building, then begin reconnaissance. The team landed and deployed their equipment quickly. Jinnah immediately began taking scanner readings of the crystallized structures, while the others set up a defensive perimeter. Her instruments showed incredible complexity in the crystal matrix. "This is amazing," she said, running her scanner over a transformed wall. The crystallization process didn't destroy the original matter. It created a perfect stasis, field around every atom. The people inside these structures aren't dead, they're frozen in time. Taman set down an equipment case with unnecessary force. "Frozen, dead, what's the difference? They're gone either way." "The difference is that this process could be reversed," Jinnah said. "With the right energy input, these people could be restored to normal." Yunji suddenly dropped to her knees, hands pressed to her temples. Blood trickled from her nose as she struggled against some invisible force. "It's coming," she gasped. "So old, so vast. It's curious about us." Wu Jin armed his portable launcher and loaded it with an armor-piercing round. "Curious or hungry?" "I don't know," Yunji whispered. "Both, maybe." The ground began to tremble. A deep vibration rose from beneath their feet, growing stronger with each passing second. The crystallized buildings around them began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that made their teeth ache. Then they saw it. The devourer emerged from a crevice in the mountain like a living shadow given form. It stood 30 meters tall, its body shifting between solid matter and something that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Wings spread wide, revealing patterns that looked like star charts written in light. Its head turned toward them with alien grace. "Open fire," Hyunwoo commanded. The team unleashed everything they had. Taman's quantum blades sent focused energy beams that could slice through starship hulls. Wu Jin's launcher fired explosive rounds designed to punch holes in armored vehicles. Yunji gathered her psychic power and hurled mental force capable of shattering stone. Every attack passed harmlessly through the creature. The devourer watched their assault with what almost seemed like patience. When their weapons fell silent, it tilted its massive head in a gesture that looked strangely familiar. Jinnah stepped forward despite the shouts of her teammates. Her scanner was detecting phase variations in the creature's quantum signature. It existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions her instruments could barely register. "Wait!" she called to the others. "It's not attacking." "It doesn't need to," Wu Jin said, reloading his weapon. "Our shots went right through it." Jinnah raised her hand slowly, palm outward. The universal gesture for peace was all she could think to try. The devourer studied her movement for a long moment, then raised one of its appendages and mirrored the gesture exactly. "It's copying me," Jinnah breathed. "Mimicry is common in predators," Taman said, but his voice held less certainty than before. The devourer began to move its limbs in complex patterns. Energy flowed from its form, carving symbols into the rocky ground. Jinnah watched in growing amazement as mathematical equations appeared, describing quantum mechanics and dimensional theory at a level far beyond current galactic science. "Those are formulas," she said. "It's trying to communicate through mathematics." Hyunwoo kept his weapon trained on the creature. "Or it's showing off before it kills us." The devourer completed its mathematical message and waited. Jinnah approached the carved symbols, her scanner recording every detail. The equations were elegant and sophisticated, describing the interaction between matter and energy across multiple dimensional planes. She knelt and began drawing her own response in the dirt. Simple arithmetic at first, then progressing to more complex concepts. The square root of -1, the mathematical constant pi, basic physics equations describing gravity and motion. The devourer watched her work with obvious interest. When she finished, it created new symbols that built upon her equations, extending them into realms of theoretical physics that human science had only begun to explore. "It's teaching me," Jinnah said in wonder. "This is a conversation." Yunji, struggled to her feet, her psychic abilities still reeling from contact with the creature's vast mind. "There's no malice in it," she said. "No hunger like we understand it. But there's something else. Purpose, duty, and terrible, endless loneliness." The sun began to set over Velthara's crystal landscape. The Devourer's form became even more ethereal in the dimming light, stars visible through its translucent body. It created one final symbol in the ground, a complex pattern that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the mountains as silently as it had come. Hyunwoo lowered his weapon slowly. What just happened? Jinna was still staring at the symbols carved in the ground. Her scanner showed they were more than just mathematical equations. The patterns seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, containing layers of meaning her instruments couldn't fully decode. "I think," she said carefully, "we just made first contact with something far more intelligent than we assumed." Taemin sheathed his quantum blades. "Intelligent predators are the most dangerous kind." "But what if it's not a predator at all?" Jinna asked. "What if we've completely misunderstood its intentions?" As darkness fell over the crystallized colony, the team made camp among the ruins. But sleep would not come easily. Each of them was forced to confront the possibility that everything they believed about their mission might be wrong. And somewhere in the mountains above them, an ancient being waited with the patience of eons, hoping that perhaps after countless millennia of solitude, it had finally found someone capable of understanding. Jinna woke before dawn and slipped out of the base camp while her teammates slept. Commander Hyunwoo had ordered everyone to stay together, but she needed to understand what had happened during their encounter. The mathematical symbols carved in the ground called to her like a puzzle, demanding to be solved. She found the Devourer waiting at the communication site, its massive form sitting motionless like a mountain. In the pale morning light, she could see details that had been hidden in shadow the night before. Its skin seemed to contain moving galaxies, swirling with tiny points of light that looked like distant stars. The creature noticed her approach and made the same peaceful gesture she had used the day before. Jinna felt her fear melting away as she realized this being meant her no harm. She sat cross-legged on the ground and began drawing new equations in the dirt. The Devourer watched with what seemed like infinite patience as she worked through complex mathematical concepts. When she finished, it responded by creating three-dimensional symbols that hung in the air above them, glowing with soft light. Slowly, through mathematics and shared images that appeared directly in her mind, the truth began to emerge. The Devourer was not a destroyer, but a guardian. Every 1,000 years, it awakened to tend to something it called the Foundation, the quantum structure that held reality together in this region of space. The images the creature shared were overwhelming. Jinna saw civilizations rising and falling across millions of years. She watched as dimensional rifts tore apart entire star systems, consuming everything within light years. And she saw the Devourer working endlessly to repair the damage, to strengthen the barriers that kept chaos from breaking through. The mining operations on Velthara had not been harmless resource extraction. They had been drilling into the quantum foundation itself, creating tiny cracks that would eventually split reality apart. The Devourer had been forced to act quickly, preserving the colonists in crystal stasis while it repaired the damage their mining had caused. "You saved them," Jinna whispered, understanding flooding through her. The creature projected another image, this one showing the terrible choice it faced every time. Let the damage spread and watch civilizations die in dimensional collapse, or act swiftly to preserve life while fixing the underlying problem. Either way, it was seen as a monster by those who did not understand. Jinna felt tears running down her face as she grasped the magnitude of the creature's loneliness. For millions of years, it had carried this burden alone, protecting countless, worlds from threats they never even knew existed. And in return, it was feared and hunted by the very people it had saved. She tried to project her own thoughts back to the creature, showing it images of her teammates and their mission. The devourer received these with calm acceptance, as if it had expected this moment to come eventually. When Jinnah returned to camp 2 hours later, she found the others in an uproar. Hyun-woo was checking his weapons, while Taemin paced like a caged animal. Yoonji sat quietly, but her eyes showed the strain of mental exhaustion. "Where have you been?" Hyun-woo demanded. "I specifically ordered everyone to stay together." "I made contact with the creature," Jinnah said. "I know what it really is." Taemin stopped pacing and stared at her. "It got to you, didn't it?" "Some kind of mental control." "No control," Jinnah said firmly. "Communication, understanding. This creature isn't our enemy. It's been protecting us all along." She explained everything she had learned, showing them images she had recorded on her scanner. The quantum foundation damage, the dimensional rifts, the careful preservation of life in crystal form. But as she spoke, she could see doubt and suspicion growing in their faces. "Impossible," Wu Jin said. "You're telling me this monster that's terrorized the galaxy for millennia is actually some kind of cosmic janitor?" "Not a janitor," Jinnah said. "A guardian, a being so advanced that its technology looks like magic to us. It's been preventing disasters we can't even imagine." Yoonji spoke for the first time since Jinnah's return. "I felt something when I tried to probe its mind yesterday. Not malice, but duty. Terrible, crushing responsibility that has lasted longer than our entire civilization." Hyun-woo shook his head. "Even if what you're saying is true, our orders are clear. The Galactic Council wants this creature dead, and that's what we're going to deliver." "The Council doesn't understand," Jinnah pleaded. "If we kill it, who will maintain the quantum foundation? What happens when the next dimensional rift opens and there's no one to stop it?" "That's not our problem," Taemin said coldly. "We're hunters, not philosophers. The creature has killed thousands of people." "It preserved them," Jinnah corrected. "They're still alive in the crystals. The process can be reversed." "Can it?" Hyun-woo asked. "Have you seen any of these preserved people restored to life?" Jinnah had to admit she had not. The devourer had shown her the preservation process, but not its reversal. She believed it was possible, but she could not prove it. Wu Jin was already preparing his equipment for the final assault. "The orbital bombardment ships will be in position within 6 hours. Whatever this thing is, whatever it thinks it's doing, it ends today." "You can't," Jinnah said desperately. "If I'm right and you kill it, the consequences could be catastrophic." "If you're wrong, and we let it live, it will kill again," Hyun-woo replied. "I won't take that risk." Yoonji stood up slowly, her psychic abilities still recovering from her encounter with the creature's vast mind. "There's something else. When I touched its thoughts, I sensed others like it. This isn't the only guardian. There are similar beings scattered across the galaxy, all maintaining different aspects of reality's structure. This revelation hit the team like a physical blow. If Jinnah was correct, they were not just planning to kill a single creature. They were about to murder one member of a network of beings responsible for keeping the universe itself stable." "How many others?" Jinnah asked. "I don't know," Yoonji said. "Dozens, maybe hundreds. All working in isolation, all misunderstood by the civilizations they protect." Hyun-woo felt the weight of command pressing down on him. His entire career had been built on clear missions with obvious targets. Destroy the pirates threatening. Shipping lanes. Eliminate the rogue artificial intelligence. Hunt down the terrorist cell. But this situation defied all his training and experience. The sun climbed higher over Velthara's crystal landscape as the team faced an impossible choice. Follow their orders and potentially doom the galaxy, or trust the word of an alien being, whose motives they could barely comprehend. In orbit above them, the bombardment ships charged their weapons and waited for the final command to fire. Commander Hyun-woo made his decision with the cold efficiency that had kept him alive through 100 battles. "Secure Dr. Park in her quarters," he ordered Tae-min. "She's been compromised by alien influence and can no longer be trusted with mission-critical decisions." Jinnah protested as Tae-min escorted her to the makeshift prison they had set up in the administrative building's storage room. "You're making a terrible mistake," she called over her shoulder. "The bombardment will kill more than just the creature." "The bombardment will complete our mission," Hyun-woo replied firmly. He activated his communication link to the orbital ships. "This is Ground Team Leader. Begin final preparations for quantum destabilization strike. Target coordinates uploading now." While Jinnah sat locked in her cell, analyzing scanner data and searching desperately for proof of her claims, the rest of the team experienced their own moments of doubt. Yoonji found herself unable to focus on her assigned tasks. Every time she tried to use her psychic abilities, she encountered fragments of the creature's ancient memories. She saw images of worlds torn apart by dimensional storms, entire star systems consumed by quantum rifts that spread like cosmic cancer through space and time. And she saw the Devourer working tirelessly to heal the damage, often arriving too late to save everyone, but always trying to preserve what life it could. "Woo Jin," she said quietly, as the demolitions expert checked his remote detonators. "What if Dr. Park is right?" Woo Jin paused in his work. "What if she's wrong? My job is to blow things up, not to understand them. Leave the thinking to the commanders and scientists." But even as he said it, Woo Jin was troubled by what he had observed. His explosive devices, carefully placed around the creature's likely approach routes, had been gradually neutralized during the night. Not destroyed or damaged, but somehow rendered harmless. The chemical compounds had been altered at the molecular level to produce light and sound instead of destructive force. It was the work of incredible precision and restraint. A truly hostile creature would have simply destroyed the devices or left them to kill the people who had planted them. Instead, it had transformed weapons into harmless fireworks. Tae-min stood guard outside Jinnah's improvised prison, his quantum blades humming softly at his side. He tried to maintain the mental discipline of a warrior, but his thoughts kept returning to the creature's movements. There had been something familiar about the way it held itself, the careful balance and controlled grace. On his home world of Nexus Prime, the greatest masters taught that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction was necessary. The creature had possessed overwhelming power, but had chosen restraint. It had communicated rather than attacked, educated rather than threatened. These were not the actions of a mindless beast or even a cunning predator. They were the choices of someone guided by principles and purpose. Meanwhile, Jinnah worked frantically in her cell, using her portable equipment to analyze the quantum signatures she had recorded. The data painted a picture that made her blood run cold. The Devourer's energy patterns were intricately woven into the local space-time matrix. Destroying it would be like cutting the supporting cables of a suspension bridge while standing on it. She managed to activate her emergency communicator and sent a desperate message directly to the Galactic Council. "This is Dr. Jinnah Park with urgent mission update. The target entity is not hostile. Repeat, the target is not hostile. It is a dimensional maintenance system preventing quantum cascade failure. Destruction will result in localized space-time collapse." The response came back within minutes, transmitted through the orbital command ship. "Dr. Park, your message has been reviewed and rejected. Psychological evaluation suggests extended exposure to alien influence has compromised your judgment. Mission parameters remain unchanged." Jinnah stared at the reply in disbelief. Even when faced with potential galactic catastrophe, the Council's pride would not let them admit they had made a mistake. She began working on the door lock with tools from her scanner kit. If her teammates would not listen to reason, She would have to find another way to prevent disaster. Outside her cell, the bombardment preparation continued. The orbital ships aligned their weapons arrays while ground-based beacon transmitters marked the target zone. Hyunwoo reviewed the firing sequence one final time, though doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. Yoonji approached him as he stood at the command console. "Sir, I request permission to attempt one more psychic scan of the target." "Denied," Hyunwoo said without looking up. "Your last contact nearly caused permanent mental damage. I won't risk losing you completely." "With respect, sir, the information I gathered during that contact suggests we may be making a critical error." Hyunwoo finally turned to face her. "Explain." Yoonji chose her words carefully. "The creature's mental signature shows patterns consistent with extreme age and accumulated trauma. It has experienced loss on a scale we can barely comprehend. But underneath all that pain is something else. Protective instinct, parental care directed toward all living things. Predators often show protective behavior toward their territory or offspring," Hyunwoo said. "This is different," Yoonji insisted. "This being sees all life as worthy of protection. It has sacrificed its own happiness, its own peace, to keep us safe from threats we don't even know exist." Before Hyunwoo could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the camp. Jinna had escaped from her cell and was running toward the creatures, location carrying her scanner and what looked like a portable communication device. "Stop her!" Hyunwoo ordered. Taemin sprinted after the fleeing scientist, his enhanced physique allowing him to gain ground rapidly. But as he closed the distance, he found himself hesitating. Dr. Park was not running from them in fear or panic. She was running toward something with the desperate determination of someone trying to prevent a tragedy. The Devourer appeared at the communications site, responding to Jinna's approach with the same patient attention it had shown before. Taemin slowed his pursuit as he watched the two figures, human and alien, working together to create new patterns in the ground. Through her portable scanner, Jinna was able to establish a more sophisticated communication link with the creature. For the first time, it could speak directly through her equipment, its thoughts translated into words the others could understand. "Why do you seek to destroy me?" the creature asked, its voice carrying the weight of eons. "I have harmed no one. I seek only to maintain the barriers that keep chaos from consuming all you hold dear." Taemin stopped running and stood motionless as the alien voice reached him. There was no deception in those words, no hidden malice, only sadness and confusion, from a being that had dedicated its existence to protecting others. "The orbital strike begins in 30 minutes, Jinna said urgently. "Can you defend yourself?" "I could," the Devourer replied, "but doing so would require drawing energy from the quantum foundation at a critical moment in the repair process. Your world's star system would destabilize within days." Jinna felt her heart sink. The creature could save itself, but only by dooming billions of innocent people, and she knew without being told that it would never make that choice. Back at the base camp, Hyunwoo faced the most difficult decision of his career. His orders were clear and his duty absolute, but the evidence was mounting that those orders were based on a fundamental misunderstanding. The countdown to bombardment continued, each passing second bringing them closer to a moment that could not be undone. The orbital bombardment began at exactly noon, Velthara time. 12 quantum destabilizer beams lanced down from space, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city block. The weapons were designed to disrupt the creature's dimensional, anchoring and force it into normal space where conventional weapons could destroy it. But instead of fleeing or fighting back, the Devourer did something none of them had expected. It spread its massive wings wide and absorbed the incoming energy, channeling it directly into the quantum foundation beneath the planet's surface. Jinna watched in amazement as her scanner showed the dimensional repair process accelerating. The creature was using their own weapons as a power source to heal the damage caused by the mining operations. "It's working," she breathed. "The quantum structure is stabilizing." But the bombardment was too intense. The Devourer's form began to flicker and distort as it struggled to process the overwhelming energy input. Cracks of light appeared across its body, and Jinnah realized with horror that the creature was burning itself out to complete its task. "Stop the bombardment!" she shouted into her communicator. "It's killing itself to save us!" Commander Hyunwoo stood at the command console, watching tactical displays that showed the creature's energy signature beginning to collapse. Everything in his training told him this was exactly what should happen. The mission was succeeding, but Yoonji's voice cut through his military conditioning like a blade. "Sir, I'm reading massive dimensional instability. If the creature dies before completing the repair process, the quantum cascade will begin immediately." "How long do we have?" Hyunwoo asked. "Minutes," Yoonji replied, her psychic abilities allowing her to sense the approaching catastrophe. "Maybe less." Tai-min stood near the communications site, watching the Devourer sacrifice itself for beings that had come to kill it. The creature's noble suffering reminded him of the ancient legends from his homeworld, stories of heroes who gave their lives to protect others. "This is not the death of a monster," he said quietly. "This is the martyrdom of a guardian." His words carried clearly through the team's communication system, reaching everyone including the orbital command crews. For the first time since the mission began, Tai-min questioned whether they were the heroes of this story. Woo Jin was already moving before anyone gave him orders. His demolitions expertise included the ability to destroy targets precisely, but it also meant he understood structural engineering better than anyone else on the team. He began planting charges on the orbital communication array. "What are you doing?" Hyunwoo demanded. "Cutting off the bombardment," Woo Jin replied. "If that thing dies, we all die with it. I didn't survive 20 years of combat missions just to get killed by my own government's stupidity." But destroying the communication array would only stop new orders from reaching the orbital ships. The bombardment sequence was already locked in and would continue automatically unless someone manually overrode the firing controls. That someone would have to be Commander Hyunwoo himself. Only his command codes could abort the attack. Yoonji collapsed to her knees as waves of agony washed through her psychic connection to the Devourer. She could feel the ancient being's life force flickering like a candle in a hurricane. But underneath, the pain was something even more heartbreaking: forgiveness. Despite everything they had done to it, despite the bombardment that was tearing it apart, the creature held no anger toward them. It understood that they were acting out of fear and ignorance, not malice. Even as it died, it felt compassion for the small beings who had caused its destruction. "It forgives us," Yoonji whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Even now, it forgives us." Those words broke through Hyunwoo's military discipline like nothing else could have. He had spent his entire career fighting enemies who hated him, who would show him no mercy if their positions were reversed. But this creature, faced with its own extinction, offered only understanding and forgiveness. He activated his command, override, and began transmitting abort codes to the orbital fleet. "All ships, cease bombardment immediately. Repeat, abort firing sequence by direct command authority." The energy beams shut off one by one, but the damage was already severe. The Devourer's form was barely holding together, its quantum signature fluctuating wildly between dimensions. Jinnah ran to the creature's side, her scanner showing critical energy depletion throughout its systems. "Can you complete the repairs?" she asked urgently. "Not alone," the Devourer replied, its voice weak but still carrying infinite sadness. "The process requires more power than I can generate in my current state." "What do you need?" "Connection. Sharing. For the first time in millennia, I need help." Jinnah looked back at her teammates, understanding what had to be done. "Our ship has a quantum core. Could you use that as a power source?" The creature's response came not in words but in a wave of desperate hope that Yoonji felt through her psychic link. Yes, it could work, but it would require all of them working together, trusting each other completely. Hyun-woo made the second crucial decision of the day. All team members, prepare for emergency quantum core transfer. We're going to help it finish what it started. Tae-min used his quantum blades to slice through the ship's hull plating, creating access to the core chamber. Woo-jin carefully extracted the reactor module and prepared it for external connection. Yoon-ji used her psychic abilities to facilitate communication between human technology and alien consciousness. And Jinna served as the bridge between two entirely different forms of life, translating the creature's needs into terms her teammates could understand. Working together, they established a connection between their ship's power core and the Devourer's failing energy matrix. Immediately, the creature began to stabilize as new power flowed into its systems. But the quantum repair process required more than just energy. It needed guidance, precision, and understanding of complex dimensional mathematics that even the Devourer could not handle alone in its weakened state. "Teach us," Jinna said. "Show us how to help." For the first time in its long existence, the ancient guardian was not alone. Human minds, limited but creative, worked alongside alien intelligence to heal the fundamental structure of reality itself. The process was beyond anything they had thought possible, but together they made it work. The quantum foundation stabilized, the dimensional barriers strengthened, and on the surface of Velthara, the crystal formations began to crack and dissolve, as the preserved colonists were finally released from their protective stasis. 3,000 people opened their eyes to find themselves alive and unharmed, with no memory of the disaster that had threatened to consume their entire star system. The greatest hunt in galactic history had become something else entirely. It had become the first true partnership between humanity and a form of life older than their civilization. 6 months after the mission to Velthara, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for an emergency session unlike any in their history. Commander Hyun-woo stood before the assembled delegates, no longer wearing the uniform of a hunter, but the simple robes of a diplomatic envoy. His team had been disbanded, not in disgrace, but in recognition that their skills were needed for a different kind of mission entirely. "The entity we knew as the Devourer has a name," he announced to the packed chamber. "It calls itself the Foundation, Keeper, and it is one of 47 similar beings scattered throughout our galaxy. For millions of years, they have maintained the quantum structures that keep our reality stable. The revelation had come gradually, pieced together through months of careful communication facilitated by Jinna's translation protocols. Each of the ancient guardians was responsible for a different aspect of cosmic maintenance. Some repaired dimensional rifts, others regulated the flow of dark matter, and still others prevented the formation of quantum singularities that could consume entire star systems. Elder Voss, his ancient face showing the strain of recent revelations, spoke for the council. "You ask us to believe that these creatures we have feared for millennia are actually our protectors? I ask you to believe the evidence," Hyun-woo replied. "Dr. Park's research has identified 17 separate incidents where Guardian interventions prevented cosmic disasters. The Nexus Prime supernova that mysteriously stabilized 300 years ago. The dimensional storm that suddenly dissipated before reaching the core worlds. The dark matter cascade that should have sterilized the outer rim but never materialized." Jinna stepped forward, carrying a data tablet containing months of analysis. She had aged visibly during her time working with the Foundation Keeper, the mental strain of bridging two vastly different forms of consciousness taking its toll. But her eyes held a peace that had not been there before. "The Guardians have been protecting us all along," she said. "But the energy cost of maintaining cosmic stability grows larger every year as the universe expands and ages. They're dying from exhaustion, one by one. Without intervention, the quantum foundation will collapse within the next 1,000 years. The implications were staggering. Entire civilizations would be consumed by dimensional rifts. Star systems would collapse into temporal loops. The fabric of space and time itself would begin to unravel. "What do they need from us?" asked the representative from the mining consortium, the same organization whose operations had nearly triggered the Velthara disaster. Yunji answered, her psychic abilities now permanently enhanced by her connection to the Foundation Keeper's vast consciousness. "Partnership. They need our creativity, our adaptability, our different way of looking at problems. Guardian minds are ancient and powerful, but they think in patterns millions of years old. We can offer new solutions to old problems." The changes had already begun. Taemin had established the first Guardian Academy on Nexus Prime, where warrior philosophers learned to combine martial arts with dimensional theory. His students practiced combat forms that existed partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions, preparing to serve as protectors for the Guardians themselves. Wu Jin had revolutionized engineering by adapting Guardian preservation technology. His new emergency stasis fields could protect entire cities from natural disasters, placing populations in temporal suspension until rescue arrived. The same process that had once seemed like a weapon of terror had become a tool of salvation. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in the depths of space, where human ships now worked alongside Guardian entities to repair the fundamental structure of reality. The process required a level of cooperation that had seemed impossible just months earlier. "The Foundation Keeper has agreed to establish a permanent communication station in the Sol system," Jinnah announced. "From there, it will coordinate with human scientists and engineers to develop new methods of cosmic maintenance. Other Guardians are showing interest in similar partnerships." Elder Voss struggled with the magnitude of what he was being asked to accept. These beings could have destroyed us at any time. Why didn't they, if we were interfering with their work? "Because destruction was never their purpose," Hyunwoo said quietly. "They see themselves as gardeners, not warriors. Their job is to nurture and protect, not to punish and kill." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Galactic Council officially recognized the Guardians as allies and established the Department of Cosmic Maintenance to coordinate joint operations. The budget allocated for this new department was larger than the entire military spending of most worlds. As the session ended, the 5 members of the original hunting team gathered in the observation lounge overlooking Earth's blue marble. They had been changed by their experience in ways they were still discovering. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had followed our original orders?" Taemin asked, watching the stars wheel slowly past the viewing port. "I try not to think about it," Wu Jin said. "The cascade failure would have started with Velthara and spread outward at the speed of light. Half the galaxy would be dead by now." Yunji closed her eyes and extended her consciousness toward the quantum dimensions where the Guardians dwelt. She could sense them out there, ancient and patient, working endlessly to maintain the cosmic order. But now, they were no longer alone. "They're not perfect," she said. "The Guardians make mistakes sometimes, just like we do. But they never stop trying to protect us, even when we misunderstand their actions." Jinnah had spent the past months learning to communicate with entities whose thoughts spanned geological ages. The process had taught her patience and perspective she had never possessed before. "The Foundation Keeper told me something interesting yesterday," she said. "It said that in all its millions of years of existence, it had never experienced hope before meeting us." "Hope?" Hyunwoo asked. "Hope that its burden might someday be shared. Hope that it wouldn't have to carry the weight of cosmic maintenance alone forever. Hope that when it finally dies, there will be others to continue its work." As they watched, a shimmering distortion appeared in space near Earth's moon. The Foundation Keeper had arrived for its regular consultation with human scientists. Its presence no longer triggered fear or military alerts. Instead, research teams prepared to welcome their alien partner in the greatest collaborative effort in galactic history. "We came to hunt a monster," Hyunwoo said softly. "Instead, we found a guardian. And in trying to understand it, we discovered something about ourselves." "What's that?" Jinna asked. "That our greatest strength isn't our ability to destroy our enemies. It's our ability to turn enemies into allies through patience, communication, and empathy." The Foundation Keeper's message reached them through Yunji's psychic link, translated into concepts they could understand. It was a simple statement, but one that carried the weight of eons. "Thank you for seeing past the surface to the truth beneath. Thank you for choosing understanding over violence. And thank you for proving that even the oldest beings in the universe can still learn new ways to hope." As humanity's first diplomatic mission to an ancient guardian began its work, none of them could know that this moment would be remembered as the turning point when the galaxy's youngest species taught its oldest inhabitants that they no longer had to face the darkness alone. The hunt was over. The partnership had begun. And among the stars, ancient guardians who had maintained their lonely vigil for millions of years finally allowed themselves to dream of a future where the burden of protecting reality itself might be shared by many willing hands rather than carried by the few.